This is bad because normally it's the 30% that are like the Trump loyalists that will always say, no, it's getting better. It's so sick now. I love the economy. And even that number has like diminished. he's sub 30 in his super base. Okay. That's not good. Now we're going to talk about President Trump addressing Congress as new tariffs take effect on Mexico, Canada, and China.
We've got two major developing stories for you today, not just one, but two. First, the Trump administration's new tariffs on three major trading partners, Mexico, Canada, and China, went into effect at midnight last night, and some of those countries have already retaliated. And second, the White House paused all U.S. military aid to Ukraine after that very explosive showdown between President Trump and President Zelensky. Now, that's the backdrop for the president's speech tonight in Congress, and Tony is there in Washington getting ready to bring us all the latest. Tony, good morning to you. Everybody's saying how dapper you look today. Good morning, Mr. DeCopo.
Well, Gail, thank you very much. You're back from the Oscars, Hollywood's biggest night.
Oh, there it is. Double circ, Tony. Double circed up Tony, baby. Tony Two-Tone, my guy. I will never stop thinking about his penis anytime he comes on screen, okay? Forever tarnished. I'm sorry. It's just, will I get banned for saying that you champion terrorist militants? No. You'll just be screaming into a void alongside a bunch of other dumbasses as well. But keep up the good work, brave soldier, you know?
Nate's been on a beach vacation, and here I am in Washington, D.C., and it's not even a State of the Union, so I'm questioning my life choices just a little bit. But look, it is going to be a big night. A potentially historic night in what has already been a fast-moving and consequential presidency in less than 100 days. You got to keep that in mind. We've been told by the Speaker of the House to expect fireworks tonight. So while a typical joint address might be a somewhat boring, somewhat somber list of goals from a new president, you can expect President Trump to instead tout action, accomplishments. And there's been a lot of that, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe no president since FDR has attempted so much so quickly. There is, for example, the at times chaotic effort by Elon Musk and Doge to shrink the size of the federal government. Also on the list, working toward a ceasefire in Ukraine by, it would seem, whatever means necessary. Also, the hefty new tariffs on imported goods from Canada, Mexico, and China. And this morning, by the way, China has said it will retaliate, and Canada also already hitting back. And that is just one of many moves this White House has made to expand the power of the executive branch. So much has happened, really, that even folks here in Washington, D.C. struggle at times to process it all. But that's why we have Nancy Cordes, our chief White House correspondent, to stay on top of everything. Nancy, good morning.
Good morning, Tony. I have had my struggles, but today is a day that the president will be front and center. And you know that this is a president who cares a lot about the stock market, but yet.
Yeah, no, he cares so much. That's why he's destroying it. That's my king. That's J.D. Pondom, baby. That's my goat right there. He said, the Treatlerites must suffer. Permanent first. He said, hold on, let me put this on. J.D. Pondom said, permanent first world genocide. The Treatlerites in the suburbs will scream bloody murder. I will take away their treats. Have fun. Enjoy the treats while you can. You will never enjoy them again. The Chinese century of prosperity is upon us. I will make our allies scream, and in the process, I will cripple the America economy. It's Trumponomics.
Yesterday, after he announced that there was no way.
Last night, I realized I was a Treatlerite when I took out a Trader Joe's lasagna and it said product of Canada, and I realized it would go up 25% time next time I buy it. That's right. Trader Joe's lasagna from Canada, which is a settler colonial entity in and of itself under the banner of the Commonwealth, still holding up loyalty to the British Empire. Canada will also suffer.
Out for Canada and Mexico, the Dow fell 650 points. Still, 25% tariffs on their goods went into effect overnight with President Trump.
He said, the labor aristocracy. I love I love doing JD Pondon. I'm sorry. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna dial it back a little bit.
Trump calling it a punishment, though it's unclear in the case of Canada in particular what that punishment exactly is for.
No room left for Mexico or for Canada.
President Trump is calling today's tariffs a powerful weapon, a weapon that will now be wielded on food, lumber, electronics, cars, anything that comes into the
hat on
U.S.
so I can
from
say
Canada and Mexico.
It's a very powerful weapon that politicians haven't used because they were either dishonest, stupid, or paid off in some other form. And now we're using them.
The move could wound American consumers, too, as producers pass along that new 25% tax, driving up the cost of a small car.
I still genuinely do not understand what, like, Trump's internal purpose for this is. Like, I don't know. I've said this already. I've tried to make sense of this. I've talked about how maybe it's because he wants to, like, bully key sectors into submission. But having said that, this is across the board tariffs. So it's not even divided evenly by sector. There is no, it just does not make sense. It truly feels like he is trying to, it truly feels like he is just trying to break everything. This, like USAID, I understand a little bit more, right? He's not doing it because he's not undermining and crippling USAID because he is trying to eradicate American soft power at the global stage. He's doing it because he personally thinks USAID is just libtard shit, right? He thinks USAID and all the NGOs and civil society organizations that it funds is a money sink for numerous Democratic Party goals and organizations. There's some truth to that. However, it plays a broader role in doing the bidding of American empire at the end of the day. Trump might not have the foresight to recognize that, right? He might not have the foresight to recognize that. He might be more interested in changing the approach that America has had in terms of focusing on soft power initiatives and hyper-focusing exclusively and entirely on permanent war. Not to be a hater, but why do you think Trump unilaterally decides any of this? I mean, I think when I say Trump, I'm not just talking about Trump. I'm talking about like his advisors as well. I'm not simply referencing Donald Trump. I don't think Donald Trump operates on his own, obviously. I guess the other point for the tariffs is that it's a regressive tax, and he will use the additional money that they get from tariffs as a way to say, we filled up the government coffers. Now it's time to cut the only progressive tax that exists, which is income tax. And even then, there's a million different loopholes. I mean, we've talked about all of this stuff already, but it still does not make a whole lot of sense.
By an estimated $6,200, or an SUV by $9,000. So many car components are built across the border.
Because of the arbitrary nature of the emergency use of tariffs that are being done, we don't know how long they're going to be in effect. At the end of the day, there is little doubt that consumers will feel the pain of this, but it will also impact consumer demand as well.
Economic uncertainty already pushed consumer confidence down in February.
This will help Tesla, right? No, it won't. No, it will help zero car manufacturers, because even the cars that are manufactured in the United States of America, because of previous trade agreements, whether it be NAFTA or, ironically enough, the trade agreement that Donald Trump did, NAFTA 2, right, has created this network of back and forth between Canada and Mexico, where they pass the American border into Mexico and pass the border into Canada and vice versa a million times until the car is assembled in the United States of America. That actually ends up, yes, USMCA is what I'm talking about. That actually ends up greatly increasing the cost of the car if they have to pay for all of the different parts that are being manufactured in Mexico or Canada before it makes its way into the United States of America, when every single car manufacturer is paying an entry fee numerous times over. Like, yes, United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, which was signed on July 1st, 2020. Okay, drafted in the 30th of September 2018, is an agreement that Donald Trump put forth, okay, which was a substitution for NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, which Donald Trump was very much against. But then he basically did the exact same thing. For the people who still don't understand how tariffs work, it is an entry fee that Americans pay for, okay? American importers pay for, just so you understand. It's not paid by the Mexican government, and it's not paid by the Canadian government. The negative consequences for trade for the Canadian or the Mexican side will obviously be that people will look for domestic manufacturers instead, or they will go to other foreign nations that provide the same exact resources, same exact materials, or same exact parts at a cheaper price, because now they don't have an additional 25% that they have to pay at the point of bringing it into the United States of America. So it will lower trade, and it will restrict. I mean, it has the capacity to restrict trade. That is why it's often used. I am not anti-tariff across the board. I've said this many times over. I'm not, I'm not against trade protectionist. I'm not against trade protectionism across the board. I do think that there needs to be, obviously, a competitive manufacturing industry. And the irony here is that for many of the things that, if you're doing, across the board tariffs, there is no competitive domestic manufacturing on some of the raw materials, for example, that you need. Like, what are you going to do if it just doesn't exist here? But let's get back.
A new CBS News poll, just 24% of Americans say the economy is getting better.
This is bad, because normally it's the 30% that are like the Trump loyalists that will always say, no, it's getting better. It's so sick now. I love the economy. And even that number has like diminished. He's sub 30 in his super base. Okay, that's not good.
49% said it's getting worse. But President Trump says that tariffs are needed to punish Mexico and Canada for allowing migrants and the deadly drug fentanyl into the U.S.
Less than 1% of all fentanyl that comes into the U.S. is apprehended at the Canadian border. So why use fentanyl as a reason?
They're only apprehending 1%. You're right about that. It's a little more than that. But they should be apprehending much more, because a lot comes through Canada.
Again, all the data that we have indicates that that is simply not the case. But what does come in through Canada is about a third of the softwood lumber that this nation uses, which has led analysts to predict that home building prices will be going up. President Trump says that if companies don't like these new tariffs, they can simply move production to the United States. But, Tony, when it comes to things like...
What are you going to do? What do you mean? What do you mean? Like, okay, you don't like the tariffs? It's time to destroy our our forests? Is that what it is? Oh, you don't like the tariffs? Okay, well, sorry. Time to destroy American forests. Canada just has a lot of trees, man. They have a lot of allocation for this. What are you supposed to do? I mean, we got forests too. Don't misunderstand me. We got forests out here. It's just that, like, I guess he just wants to destroy the remainder of the American forests,
lumber or fruits and vegetables from Mexico, moving it here, not that easy.
No, it takes time, and there are benefits that the president is touting, but there could be sacrifices in the short term. Sacrifice is not a word he typically would want to use with the American people. We'll see if it comes up tonight.
More on President Trump's tariffs and what they could mean for consumers. Elizabeth Schulze joins us to break down the potential.
They announced it yesterday, going to clear 280 million acres of national forest trees. Jesus Christ, dude. I mean, I suspect that it'll be much easier to do these sorts of things when you can't do an impact study, because you fired every researcher and you think impact studies are woke and gay. I wonder what the long-term consequences will look like when you're just gutting the remainder of the American forests now. Oh, great. I love having people control the wheel that have no interest in being even remotely reasonable. Just doing absolute death and destruction. Great stuff.
Impact. And Elizabeth, what kind of products?
You can't ramp up production that quickly. There's also that side of it too, but I'm not even going to get into that. Okay. There's also obviously the fact that you can't just like materialize out of nowhere all of these businesses that seemingly did not exist. You know, you just can't do that.
Are going to be affected by these tariffs on America's top trading partners?
Hey, good morning, Robin. Well, the short answer here is that a lot of products that we buy day to day could get more expensive. Groceries, gas, shoes, clothes, electronics. Mexico, Canada, and China, they accounted for almost half of all of the goods that were shipped into the U.S. last year. And the way that these tariffs work is that American businesses that are importing goods from those countries will now have to pay the U.S. government a higher fee for their products to cross the border. A key goal there is to incentivize companies to rely on domestic manufacturers to boost jobs here. But in the short term, those American businesses will have to decide if they absorb higher costs from the tariffs or if they pass them down to their customers, Robin.
Okay, so if companies do pass down the costs, how soon could consumers pay higher prices?
Okay, so if these tariffs stay in place, economists expect you could start to see price hikes by Memorial Day. For groceries, it could be within weeks or even days, Robin. So take fresh produce, for example. About 63% of U.S. vegetable imports come from Mexico. Think bell peppers, cucumbers, strawberries, tomatoes, limes, avocados, a lot of that fresh produce. And grocers, they can't really stockpile those foods in advance. So if they decide to pass down the entire 25% tariff, that means your $3 avocado could end up costing $3.75 pretty quickly. Liquor, like tequila and Canadian whiskey, could also get more expensive. And then the auto sector, really another big one at risk here. Automakers rely on thousands of different car parts that are traded between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. If they are paying more to get those parts, you could end up paying $3,000 more for a new car. And some of the dealers that we've talked to say that they might raise those prices within months, Robin.
And many are wondering about gas prices, Elizabeth. Could they go up too?
They could. So about 60% of the crude oil that the U.S. imports comes from Canada. Our refineries are actually uniquely built to process Canadian oil. The national average right now for a gallon of gas about $3. Gas Buddy expects that the tariffs mean prices could go up by 15 cents a gallon in the Midwest.
That's right. My goat, he's doing it. He's doing it. He's fixing the cost of living crisis by making it so that by making it so expensive that you just die. It's so sick. He's doing it, man. This goes back to the thing that I was talking about initially, the resentment and the jealousy that I have, the envy that I have for Trump getting to do whatever he wants and his fan base just eating it up like it's the most brilliant thing that's ever happened. Like it's the most brilliant thing that's ever taken place. He's doing it again. He could just be like, yep, that's right. You're going to suffer, but it's okay because you deserve to suffer. We are going to deindustrialize the United States of America. The labor aristocracy will suffer the largest penalties for the American empire's cruelty. Endless bounty. Unequal exchange is over, folks. Okay, let's listen to Maria Bartiromo crashing out at a auto dealership guy freaking out about these tariffs.
Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram. Yeah. Impact.
I love that for months, I said, and many other people who understand what's going on said over and over again that this is going to tank the American economy, that this is going to make everything insanely expensive. Okay? We said this over and over again. And for some weird reason, no one on the conservative side ever took this seriously. Like, I don't get it.
Dramatic.
All of this will make the EU stronger. No, it won't. It absolutely will not. You're wrong.
It's sold order for a customer. $80,000 truck. It's $100,000 now. So he's not going to buy the truck. It's going to sit on my lot at the higher interest rates we're paying right now for floor plan, and nobody's going to buy the truck because it just had a $20,000 price increase.
Right. Kelley Blue Book will put the number up. They say the average vehicle will go up by about $3,000. Does it sound right to you?
No, it will not. We don't have the broad stroke. We don't have the linear, the tight strokes. But
I just wanted to make my camera smaller so you can see the Dow futures on the ticker in the corner there. Like while all of this is happening, the stock market's taking a nosedive, which is also weird. He said he was going to do it. Why didn't people? This is the other thing that I don't understand. Why is the stock market responding to this now? He's been saying he's going to do this for months at this point. I just do not understand. Stocks mostly rebound. I know, but like, I don't know. I don't understand it. I'm too stupid, I guess. I'm too stupid to understand the high IQ games that people are playing on the stock market.
But to me, it's a 25% tariff. So that affects our parts that come from over these countries and a whole bunch of our cars.
And you've been basing your business model on free trade, basically. This is what the American Automakers Policy Council says, Maria, in response to this. They say our American automakers invested billions in the U.S. to meet the requirements of the current free trade agreement. They shouldn't have their competitiveness undermined by tariffs that'll raise the cost of building vehicles in the U.S. and stymie investment in the American workforce while competitors from the outside of North America benefit. The German, there's no tariff on the German cars coming
No, they're Japanese. They're going to be okay. But think about it. We built our business around that. The OEMs built their business around that, and now it changes on a dime. And we can't build a $4 billion plant overnight in the United States. So I think building in the United States is great. I think enhancing the participation from the other countries on the other things, but this is pretty radical.
I hear you. There you go, Maria, where the rubber meets the road here.
All right, great. Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, exactly. Jeff, thank you. Thank you so much. Jeff Flock at the Dodge Ram plant. Not plant. It's not a plant, Chris. They're selling cars. Thank you, dealership. But you know what? Let me ask you this, okay?
Yes.
How many Dodge Rams do you see driving around Europe? Okay.
I once again am asking Amerifat morons why they do not make cars that are appropriate for the European market and then sit there and demand that they drive these behemoth tanks on roads that cannot sustain them. Make better cars. It's so stupid. Make smaller, fuel-efficient cars with smaller engines. That's it. Abide by EU standards and regulations. The Chinese car manufacturers never turned around and were like, no, you're going to drive our version of these vehicles. We don't care. They looked at the market and they were like, okay, we'll make these incredibly competitive and very cheap electric vehicles, and we will flood your market, and they will be impossible to compete with on a price point because we're heavily subsidizing it. Okay? That's it. It's not like they were sitting around being like, no, we want to make tanks. Why won't the dumb Europeans purchase our tanks? The cars that we make here in the United States of America are ginormous. The F-150, until this past year, was the most popular vehicle year over year, okay? The F-150, the Ford F-150 pickup truck. The Ford F-150 pickup truck inside of the European Union needs a commercial driver's license to be able, for a European to operate an F-150, you need a commercial driver's license. Do you understand? You're immediately, automatically shut out from half of the European streets. You can't go into any European cities. It is ginormous. What are we doing here? It's so frustrating. Where they're like, why won't they buy our tanks? Why won't they do that? They made the calculation that the American cultural exports will eventually lead Europeans to want street tanks, and to some extent it's working. I see way too many Ram 1500s on the road here in Austria. Wait, really? I thought you meant Australia. I was about to say, well, they have a Ute culture over there, but Austria? That's crazy.
How many Dodge Rams do you see driving around India? I mean, not many, I bet. Why? Because they don't buy our cars. And that's what President Trump is trying.
Yeah, also, that's the other thing. Toyota literally sells different cars in the U.S. to match our needs and interests. You won't find a Tundra or Tacoma in the heart of Tokyo when they can't hit in this when they can't fit in the side roads. Exactly. Even the Tacoma has become ginormous. And then you have the Tundra, which is the American competitor. It's crazy. I hate it. I hate that the one good thing about the European Union is walkable cities and a walkable infrastructure and public transit. And that is partially because, they did that before the American brain rot set in. Okay, they did that. And now we're just like going to force their hands and be like, nah, dude, you have to have these tanks. You have to literally rebuild your cities, destroy the public transit so that you can have Ford F-150 pickup trucks driving around. You have to literally destroy what remains of like the parks and whatnot so you can create these ginormous parking lot structures.
Trying to change, maybe Dodge should start building them here and selling them here.
Also, Ford, GM, etc. do the same thing. They have non-American models in the EU, for example. It's a common gripe with the EV community. These American automakers being cool EVs everywhere but the US. Think shooting brakes, saloons. Why are cars so thick now? Like, is it just American culture nonsense? No, it's partially because of CAFE standards. That if you make a vehicle so large that it just like becomes a commercial vehicle, basically, but you can still sell it as a regular vehicle. All right, where were we? All right, let's get back to this.
Much as 40 cents a gallon within a week in the Northeast, Robin.
All right, Elizabeth, our thanks to you.
We have some breaking news coming in. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau speaking right now after the U.S. slapped Canada with 25% tariffs. Let's listen.
SUVs get the truck emission standards, so they get more lax emission standards. Exactly. It's a way to take advantage of a regulatory loophole, because that's how everything works in this goddamn country, because everyone is a charlatan.
So today, the United States launched a trade war against Canada, their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense. Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake. At the moment, the U.S. tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response.
Boom.
Canada will be implementing.
Yeah, enjoy not having maple syrup, you American dummies. I'm kidding. Obviously, there's so much more than just maple syrup. Let's be real, but
25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion of American products in 21 days' time. Should these tariffs not cease, we are in active and ongoing discussions with provinces and territories to pursue several non-tariff measures. Measures which will demonstrate that there are no winners in a trade war. Now, just like I did a month ago, I want to speak first directly to the American people. We don't want this. We want to work with you as a friend and ally. And we don't want to see you hurt either. But your government has chosen to do this to you. As of this morning, markets are down, and inflation is set to rise dramatically all across your country. Your government has chosen to put American jobs at risk, at the thousands of workplaces that succeed because of materials from Canada or because of consumers in Canada, or both. They've chosen to raise costs for American consumers on everyday essential items like groceries and gas, on major purchases like cars and homes, and everything in between. They've chosen to harm American national security impeding access to the abundant critical minerals, energy, building materials, and fertilizers that we have and that the United States needs to grow and prosper. They've chosen to launch a trade war that will, first and foremost, harm American families. They've chosen to sabotage their own agenda that was supposed to usher in a new golden age for the United States. And they've chosen to undermine the incredible work we've done together to tackle the scourge that is fentanyl, a drug that must be wiped from the face of the earth. So on that point, let me be crystal clear. There is absolutely no justification or need whatsoever for these tariffs today. Now, the legal pretext your government is using to bring in these tariffs is that Canada is apparently unwilling to help in the fight against illegal fentanyl. Well, that is totally false. Let's look at the facts. Our border is already safe and secure. Far less than 1% of fentanyl flows and less than 1% of illegal crossings into the United States.
I think one of the funniest aspects of this is like Trudeau is like subtly trying to throw Mexico under the bus here and also fact checking Trump. But what's hilarious about it is that Claudia Sheinbaum did her version of this as well, which is that Claudia Sheinbaum said the objective reality, which is that fentanyl is trafficked into the United States by American nationals for the American public consumer. Okay? That's it. It's the truth. American citizens are the ones who are trafficking the fentanyl into the United States of America for the consumption of other American citizens. Okay? And in the process, those American citizens also defend the cartel's interests by giving them endless amounts of weapons. We are a belligerent state that is ruining the lives of, actively ruining the lives of countries that unfortunately are near our national boundaries. But God forbid we take ownership over any of that. No, it must be the Guatemalan abuelas, you know?
The United States comes from Canada. But we acted because we know we can always do better. We responded to concerns, including from the president, by implementing an ambitious $1.3 billion border plan. A border plan that includes generational investments in new AI and imaging tools to stop the flow of fentanyl in its tracks, stronger coordination and information sharing with American agencies, along with the deployment of drones, helicopters, and additional personnel to keep our border secure. Now, a month ago, as part of an agreement with the United States that paused the tariffs, we made further commitments. We appointed Kevin Brasseau as our fentanyl czar, a man who dedicated his multi-decade career in law enforcement to combating organized crime networks and drug trafficking. We designated 7 drug cartels, sick, evil groups who cynically profit off the pain and suffering of people on both sides of the border, as the terrorist organizations that they are. And just yesterday, we launched a new joint operations partnership supported by a $200 million investment between Canada's security and law enforcement agencies, a partnership that will enhance the coordination of information and intelligence in order to thwart criminal gangs involved in the illegal fentanyl trade.
He spends too much time on this. Trump does not care even a little bit about fentanyl. What's really interesting is he's doing the same thing that Zelensky did, which I think might have made sense in the past, maybe, but like doesn't currently make sense for present day America, which is respond reasonably and try to reason with the American audience by sidestepping Trump. Okay. He's not talking to Trump here. He's talking to the Americans. Okay. He's being like, oh, your president is lying to you about this stuff. Please listen to what I have to say. Please listen to reason. And I think it's a foolhardy endeavor. Maybe I'm wrong. But I just don't think that a lot of these Americans will ever hear out what Justin Trudeau is saying. Okay? They just don't care. I don't think they care at all. I don't think they care about the truth. I don't think they care about being reasonable or looking at the cold, hard data. I just think that they are purely spite-driven, very confused, very angry all the time. And Trump keeps their attention focused on vulnerable populations in general. It's worth a try. No, dude, it's not. I don't think it is. That's why I said the exact same thing about Zelensky. When Zelensky went on Brett Baer and like tried to talk directly to the American population and turn around and say, like, you know, listen to what's going on. Like, my people are suffering. Okay. I'm a president. Like, I have to defend their interests. America, we love America. We love Americans. You've supported us throughout this process. I'm like, you know, we still need your help. I don't think Americans care. They just don't. I think that Americans are insanely selfish. I don't think that you are going to be able to win over the Americans as especially with like reason. I don't know. Maybe I'm just so jaded because I tried to get Americans as an American citizen to understand that things could be so much better if we had healthcare, for example, or if we just stopped spending so much money on war overseas and like giving unlimited billions to Israel so they can continue their baby murder campaign or whatever. And Americans say I'm a terrorist for that. They say I want vuvuzela rat eating. When I say, oh, I want socialized medicine in this country, Americans, a big chunk of them turn around and say, oh, you want Venezuela style rat for dinner, rat for breakfast. That's what you want. They're brain broken. Like, I don't know. I try reasoning with the public all the time. And let me tell you, as someone who tries to reason with them using logic, using common sense, many of them do not respond. The only thing that they respond to is you know, the direct impact of Trump's actions. Once it starts hurting them directly, they'll notice it. They'll feel it. Only then will they wake up to that reality. And even then, many of them will still go, oh, it's because we haven't like done enough cruelty to migrants or something.
Critically, our actions are working. As the U.S. Customs and Border Protection just
you are not the leader of a country.
There was a 97% drop in fentanyl seizures from January compared to December, to a near zero low of less than half an ounce seized in January, even with all the further enforcements and actions we've taken at the borders. In sum, we stepped up. We engaged closely and constructively with the president and his administration. We did everything we promised. We stuck to our word. And we did it because we believe in working together to protect our citizens. Now I want to speak directly to one specific American, Donald. In the over 8 years you and I have worked together, we've done big things. We signed a historic deal that has created record jobs and growth in both of our countries. We've done big things together on the world stage, as Canada and the US have done together for decades, for generations. And now we should be working together to ensure even greater prosperity for North Americans in a very uncertain and challenging world. Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald.
Because he's woke. Because he's woke and he is Fidel Castro's next of kin. That's why. Because Justin Trudeau is a communist.
They point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
Yeah, look, the thing is, I will say this much, okay? Part of the reason why I'm not anti-tariff across the board is because I do think that it has the capacity to beef up domestic manufacturing, okay, if done correctly. If it's managed through unions like the UAW, for example, and they play a big role in how manufacturing can be increased, for example. I just don't trust the Donald Trump administration to actually actively give a seat at the table to the UAW, though. I think it could be done correctly. It just can't be blanket tariffs across the board for each individual nation. What he's doing here is basically breaking the toys that America benefited from for years and years and years. That's all he's doing. Trade negotiations that he actually renegotiated. The USMCA is the United States, Mexico, Canada agreement is literally NAFTA 2. Donald Trump implemented that. Okay. So when he turns around and he's like, yeah, I don't want it no more. What I find very strange about these decisions is that these are negotiations and agreements that benefited America and the American consumers, often at the cost of American manufacturing. Clawing that back and reshaping American priorities and reshaping American manufacturing in this way is not necessarily a bad thing in the long term if done correctly. But of course, as is the case with Donald Trump, he's not doing it correctly. I don't think that he's doing it for a good reason. I don't think he's doing it to improve American manufacturing. But to be fair, I also don't know what he is trying to do anyway, because so much of the Trump administration is just genuine insanity. Yeah, we'd have to do China level central planning to actually reindustrialize. Just doing blanket tariffs makes no sense. I know.
We two friends fighting is exactly what our opponents around the world want to see. And now, to my fellow Canadians, I won't sugarcoat it. This is going to be tough, even though we're all going to pull together, because that's what we do. We will use
the craziest thing that watches the leftist who was in the streets in the 90s and early 2000s against these trade agreements. Yeah. How do you think he's going to get out of it? I don't even know what the hell he's doing. I've just never seen a right-wing administration behave like this. Like I've never really, even liberal administrations now don't behave like this. I don't think it's like a repolarization happening in the two American major parties. I don't think that like Trump is now actively trying to bring back American manufacturing and create strong labor unions for Americans. Like, I just don't think that he's doing that. Because if he was doing that, he would not be actively destroying the administrative state. He would not be actively destroying the administrative state while simultaneously, yeah, this is from 2 months ago. Hold on, there's a newer version of this that I believe he did a couple days ago. I'm going to watch this instead. Yanis Varoufakis, former Greek finance minister, friend of the show, one of my favorite bald men, is on Rana Khalek's Dispatches on BT, Breakthrough News, talking about what possibly could be the reason for why Trump is doing all of the things that he's doing in terms of tariffs. Let's take a look.
And it is a rational plan. It is a well thought out plan. For me, it is a terrible plan in the sense that it works against the interests of the majority of Americans and against the interests of the majority of humanity. But we need to understand it before we fight it. And the liberal establishment are like headless chickens running around in the hope that somehow Trump is going to fail as a result of not having a plan. He's not going to have to fail because he doesn't have a plan. If he fails, he will fail because there will be people and movements that oppose him who understand his plan. So I just wanted to make this clear.
No, it's important. It's an important caveat. Yeah.
Okay. So what is the plan? To begin with, to understand his plan, we have to understand his main gripe, his main discontent regarding the state of the United States. The vast majority of people around the world, and that includes me, we believe that, and I think we're not wrong to believe, that the United States has an exorbitant privilege, and that is the US dollar.
The US dollar and the US markets. Okay? America is an incredibly wealthy nation. And that's why even the poorest Americans, in comparison to like middle class people in Europe, for example, are still, when compared on the global marketplace, have a lot more purchasing power, right? Like that's why sometimes people will say stuff like, "Oh well, you know, Alabama's like a wealthier than England," right? Like people say stuff like that all the time. Now, and that's true. There's truth to that. Your PC is totally freezing up. No, everything is fine on my end. What ended up happening, I think, is a server side issue on the Twitch side. Might depend where in the EU.
US dollar is the only kind.
Credit card debt is not purchasing power. Yes, it is. You're wrong. It quite literally is if you are someone who's selling goods in the American marketplace. It doesn't matter if it's being purchased with credit card debt. What matters is the money that you're getting. That's it. That's it. That's literally, like, I understand where you're coming from, because it doesn't, that is precisely the reason why, if you simply look at GDP and if you simply look at purchasing power, you kind of fail to recognize that, like, Americans on average have a way worse quality of life than Europeans on average do, because European states at least like create a comfortable barrier of security and offer some social safety nets that Americans do not have, and that they have to purchase in the private marketplace. This also then feeds back into the GDP, ironically enough. But in terms of selling goods into the American market, in terms of selling goods to the Americans, it doesn't matter if they're buying it with credit card debt or not. If you're a manufacturer of goods and you want to enter the American marketplace, you don't care if they're buying it with credit card debt. You don't care if they're buying it with predatory loans. Okay, you just care about them buying your goods. Okay, that's it.
Into the world that is in demand independently of what the United States produces. So the only reason why you would want the British pound is if you want to buy something produced in Britain, or if you want to go to Britain as a visitor, as a tourist. Nobody else wants pounds, really. Maybe for speculation. Right? But I'm speaking to you from Athens. When I put gas, petrol in my motorcycle, right? Even if it is a Greek company buying petrol from a Greek or a French company that has purchased crude oil from, let's say, Libya. So there's no American corporation involved at all. That act of purchasing gas for my motorcycle increases.
Fix your PowerPoint, bro. I think, Chatter, I think it's a you issue. I think you're gonna have to refresh. The stream is, I believe, fine for everyone else.
The demand for dollars, because oil is denominated in dollars. So that's exorbitant privilege of the United States. It's what allows, as I was saying before, the Germans to keep selling their net exports to the United States, the Chinese to do this, the Japanese to do it, and how this is all recycled through Wall Street, and it becomes rents for the rentier class in the United States. It becomes rents for the bankers in Wall Street, and so on and so forth. But Trump, while understanding all this and loving it, he loves the fact that the dollar has these exorbitant powers for the United States ruling class, and he's one of them. Nevertheless, he sees this exorbitant privilege also, or primarily, as an exorbitant burden. From his perspective, he's a nationalist. He doesn't like the fact that the United States can no longer build nuclear submarines because you don't have an engineering sector anymore. You're not producing enough steel. He once said back in the 80s, in 1982, 83, I saw a quote from him, that if you don't have steel, you don't have a country. And America is not producing steel anymore in any substantial quantities. It's China primarily, and also Germany. So for him, this exorbitant privilege, which he adores, comes with the exorbitant burden of effectively shrinking the United States. But then he has also an economic theory behind it, which leads him to conclude that this exorbitant privilege is not going to last long, that carnage will come to the United States. And I don't think he's wrong on this. His argument is this. Now, why does the United States have such a large trade deficit vis-a-vis Germany, Japan, China, and so on? Why is it that the market doesn't work? Because if Paul Krugman and all the other liberal establishment economists were right, that markets work to equilibrate through demand and supply prices, interest rates, and exchange rates, the dollar should have fallen because America has a trade deficit. Every country that has a trade deficit, its currency comes down. But why is the dollar not coming down? Because it has this exorbitant privilege, because people want it for other reasons. But from the perspective of Trump's team, not just Trump, but he has a team of economists around him who are not dodos, who are, quite smart. They may be evil, but they are smart. And what they realize is that that's their thinking, that's their analysis, that the reason why the dollar is not coming down is because the central banks of the foreign countries, of foreigners, foreign central banks, hoard dollars. Now, why do they hoard dollars? Because dollar is the reserve currency. Yeah. So when Germany sells cars to the United States, you have all these dollars going back to Germany. And what happens to these dollars? The vast majority of them, the dollars that are not returned by Mercedes-Benz to New York, they are hoarded by the Central Bank of Europe. Similarly, by the Bank of England, by the Bank of Switzerland, by the Bank of Sweden, by the Bank of Japan, by the Bank of China, increasingly. Right? $3 trillion is held by the Central Bank of Japan. $3,000 billion. That's not to be scoffed at. And why do they hold these dollars? Why don't they convert them into their own currency in order to increase economic activity? Because this is how they preserve their currency at low levels.
If you have a conscience, it's unbearable.
Here,
join us.
Because when you hoard these dollars, right, then the value of the dollar vis-a-vis your own currency goes up, and the competitiveness of your export sector is enhanced. And therefore, Trump says, you see, the foreigners are taking advantage of us. We are gifting them the reserve currency, which keeps their currencies down and keeps their currencies backstopped. Instead of holding gold or whatever, diamonds, they're holding our dollars. And in so doing, they are disadvantaging our exporters, and they're advantaging their exporters who are importing into the United States. And this
is why he's mad at Japan. I mean, this is why America historically tanked. This is initially why America tanked the Japanese economy as well, which is like how in the 90s Japan went into turned into a multiple decade of I mean, still to this day has experienced stagnation, because if it's super cheap to make goods in Japan and then sell it to the American marketplace, also super cheap, then obviously it's just something that it's something that America is not going to be fond of. If the U.S. dollar is strong, exporting goods out of USA is hard because importing country needs to buy strong, i.e. expensive USD.
For you have the U.S. trade deficit. Okay, so
does China do this as well? Stockpile U.S. dollars? Of course, every country does, and yes, China does as well.
Here comes the story about the tariffs. Now, conventionally, liberal establishment economists think that Trump is an idiot, because he can't see that tariffs can't work to eliminate the U.S. trade deficit. Their view is, and this is not wrong, where they are wrong is they think that Trump doesn't understand it. He doesn't understand it. What the story is that, yes, you slap tariffs on Chinese aluminum or Chinese plastics or Chinese clothes, right? But that will increase the price that American consumers have to pay, and that will jeopardize America's economy because it will push inflation up. But that at some point is not going to eliminate the trade deficit, because as this happens, the dollar will go up. And as the dollar goes up, in the end, American consumers will not be paying more, because even though they will have to pay the tariff, the dollar value will have gone up. So what they pay in Walmart is not going to be greater. Now, Trump knows that entirely. I've read policy papers that are circulating amongst his team. And they know this precisely and they love it. You know why? Because that's...
No way Trump understands all that. No, it's not Trump that understands it. It's, guys, just like Joe Biden didn't run the American government unilaterally, Donald Trump is not running the American government unilaterally. He has a bunch of people around him that are telling him to make these decisions because they are setting what they perceive is going to be the future of the American economy. That's it. You think Donald Trump makes these decisions on his own? Of course not. Like, that's why Project 2025, I don't know what that is, when he was saying stuff like that, it was always ridiculous. Of course, he gets all of his notes from the Heritage Foundation and the American Enterprise Institute. Yes. And it's not just Elon Musk. There's an eclectic group of people that have similar goals and similar interests, which is like advancing the interests of capital and undermining the administrative state. And some of them might be at odds with one another in terms of like how America should do trade in the future. And that's a pretty significant disagreement. But ultimately, right now, as it stands, all of these guys are just holding on. Okay? They recognize that America is dying. It's a dying empire. And they want to pick apart the scraps. They're not necessarily known for long-term thinking and stability. Capital owners don't really think in decades. They think in quarters. They think in quarterly earnings reports, which is precisely the reason why they're like, all right, well, if America's dying, we might as well, pick the corpse apart for scraps while that is happening. Republicans making the money they didn't make in 4 years that they weren't inside the White House through insider trading? Not necessarily that either.
How they will get foreigners to pay for the tariffs? Because if, here it is something that they state explicitly in their policy papers. We slap tariffs on them. Their central banks will immediately reduce their interest rates to absorb the recessionary shock to their own economies from our tariffs. As they reduce interest rates, their currency is going to go down. The dollar will go up. In the end, the import prices, the prices that Americans pay will not have changed much, but something will have changed. The trade deficit will not be eliminated, but one thing will have changed. The foreigners will be paying us money. They will be paying for the tariffs. And that for the US administration, for the Trump administration is great. Not only will they be collecting the tariff money, but remember, Congress, and particularly the House of Reps, has the purse strings for tax receipts, but not for tariff receipts. To increase the amount of money that the US government gets from the American taxpayer, Trump has to convince Congress. And there he has a very thin majority, and there is just bedlam. He really doesn't want to have to negotiate with Congress.
I thought the prices were supposed to go up. Is that not true? No, I think it will. I mean, that is in the short term, I think that prices will go up. Having said that, however, this is Yanis Varoufakis trying to say that there is a reason for why Donald Trump's administration, like, he's trying to figure out what could possibly be the logical reason. And it's one of the only explanations that I've heard thus far that at least like have some semblance of logic associated with it, that there is a reason for why he's doing this. And that is that he considers the power that the American dollar has a major issue with American manufacturing. And there's obviously truth to that as well, right? And that if he, by way of implementing these tariffs, he wants to force other countries to make their goods more expensive so that the American manufacturing comes back and other countries actually buy from the United States of America. But in the short term, this will absolutely harm the American economy as it stands.
But the moment he slaps the tariffs, the stream of money goes to the Treasury without any negotiation with Congress. And indeed, he can actually even spend this money. There are some legal impediments, but we know how much he respects those. And that's phase one. Nothing has been accomplished by the end of phase one to bring down the US trade deficit. He has increased his Treasury stake through the tariffs. He's made the foreigners suffer and pay for it. And now comes phase two, which is a grand negotiation. Then he says to them, and this is not novel really, Reagan did that to the Japanese in 1985. Reagan gathered everybody. If you have ever heard of the so-called Plaza Accords of 1985, he gathered the European central bankers and so on, but primarily he had the Japanese there, and he put them under their thumb and said, similarly to what Trump wants to do, you're going to revalue the yen, or I'm going to slap tariffs on you. Now, Trump first slaps the tariffs and then says to the Chinese, to them, to the Germans, to the Saudis and so on, you are now going to revalue your currency. But how? You're going to take a chunk of the dollars that you're holding and you're going to sell them. That way, you are revalue, sell them, for your own currency. That way, you will revalue the euro, the yen, the yuan, and so on. Alternatively, if you don't have that many dollars, and the European Union, the Eurozone doesn't have that many dollars, it is the Japanese that have more than $1 trillion and the Chinese who have $3 trillion.
Yeah, Giannis is right. When you slap tariffs on countries, countries will reduce their interest rates to protect their industry, so their currencies will go down against the dollar. Hence, the tariffs costs will be absorbed by those countries instead of the U.S., and prices won't go up. Maybe. I do not understand is that for that to work, factories and offices have to build first in the U.S. for this, and not only tax incentives have to be created, but bank loan and bank advantages have to be implemented. I think you're not fully understanding him. The price of the dollar goes up on the global market in the end, making foreign goods cheaper in the end while still getting tariff money. I do not foresee the price of goods immediately coming down or even staying relatively stable while and then maybe in the long term creating a big boon in manufacturing, especially because in the short term this will literally lead to layoffs, like mass layoffs in general. The chatter is wrong. When the US dollar increases in value, that means our exports are going to go up in price and the trade deficit will not close. The US also relies on non-substitutable goods abroad. Yeah. If you have, like, when it comes to raw materials, like, there is no substitute. What are you supposed to do? You know what I mean? If we just don't have it here, what are you supposed to do? He's not doing any carve-outs whatsoever. Maybe he will down the line, and I don't understand it. Or maybe he's signaling that he might do that, but he hasn't said anything about it. It just, like, doesn't make sense. Commerce Secretary Lutnick, Trump may roll back Canada and Mexico I'm done. I mean, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Why am I doing this? Why? Why are we doing this? What the hell is going on? What a goddamn clown show. Okay, I'm done. I'm officially placing Trump in the unique position that I've only placed one other global leader on. The Vladimir Putin insanity position, okay? That's it. Officially, I'm done looking for reason behind his actions. I'm lying. I will always still try to find a logical reason why he's doing the things that he's doing, even if I disagree with it. But goddamn, it's just like, it doesn't. April Fool's ass tariffs. The goal isn't entirely to bring manufacturing back to America. When the Canadian loonie goes down in worth and the American dollar gains value, America can then purchase the same Canadian products, lumber, etc., at a lower price since the American dollar is stronger. One day, just like your suspension, yeah. Donald Trump pulled a classic Hasanabi bait and switch.
I think in terms of what he wants, I heard he talked about banking again this morning in a tweet, which doesn't make any sense because American banks, there's about 16 American banks currently active in Canada holding about $113 billion worth of assets in this country. So the American banks are alive and well and prospering in Canada. It's an example of not really being able to see what it is that he wants, because even the excuse that he's giving for these tariffs today of fentanyl is completely completely unjustified, completely false. So we actually have to fold back on the one thing he has said repeatedly, that what he wants is to see a total collapse of the Canadian economy, because that'll make it easier to annex us. Now, first of all, that's never going to happen. We will never be the...
That's a crazy thing to be discussing as a world leader, by the way. The fact that your southern neighbor is led by an insane person, okay? The fact that you are a leader of a sovereign nation and your southern neighbors are led by a madman, that you have to factor in. You have to factor in that he might be simply trying to weaken the Canadian economy and then make it easier to annex. Wild stuff, man.
51st state. But yeah, he can do damage to the Canadian economy, and he's started this morning. But he is rapidly going to find out, as American families are going to find out, that that's going to hurt people on both.
Welcome to Eastern Europe. Yeah.
And yeah, we're probably...
Yeah, he's doing the United Socialist States of America, okay? He's doing the United Soviet States of America. USA. You just add one more S, dude. It's over. Canada is it's not balkanizing. We're turning it into USA, Yugoslavia, the glorious Yugoslavia-ification of North America, the North American continent.
Probably going to keep booing the American anthem. But let me tell Americans, we're not booing.
Similar to what? Similar to Ukraine worrying about Russia? Look, I'm not making predictions. Like I said, I've learned my lesson from the past, okay? Donald Trump is a madman. I'm not making predictions about Donald Trump, just like I don't make predictions about Vladipoo, okay? They sometimes do some insane stuff, okay? They engage in insanity. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what the logical through line is.
We're not booing your teams. We're not booing your players. We're booing a policy that is designed to hurt us. And we're insulted. And we're angry. But we're Canadian, which means we're going to stand up for each other. We're going to fight. And we're going to win.
So, Harris, let's get to this really quick.
Trump was Governor Trudeau on notice for criticizing tariffs. Please explain to Governor Trudeau of Canada. Governor. He calls him Governor Trudeau because he's saying like it's a part of the American empire now. That when he puts on a retaliatory tariff in the U.S., our reciprocal tariff will immediately increase by a like amount. U.S. Commerce Secretary says the tariffs on Canada are just getting started. But here's also Howard Lutnick talking about Mexicans and Canadians. Here, let's take a look.
He's going to come out today angry that Americans are still being killed. Now, both the Mexicans...
The fentanyl stuff is ridiculous, by the way. It is like the stupidest way to package it. It is straightforwardly the dumbest way to try and package this. To be like, oh yeah, we're doing this for fentanyl.
Mexicans and the Canadians were on the phone with me all day today trying to show that they'll do better. And the president's listening because, you know, he's very, very fair and very reasonable. So I think he's going to work something out with them. It's not going to be a pause, none of that pause stuff. But I think he's going to figure out, you do more and I'll meet you in the middle some way. And we're going to probably be announcing that tomorrow. So somewhere in the middle will likely be the outcome. The president moving with the Canadians and Mexicans, but not all the way.
Just to clarify,
he's going to come out today angry that Americans are still being killed. Now, both the Mexicans and the Canadians were on the phone with me all day today trying to show that they'll do better. And the president's listening because, you know, he's very, very fair and very reasonable. So I think he's going to work something out with them. It's not going to be a pause, none of that pause stuff. But I think he's going to figure out, you do more and I'll meet you in the middle some way. And we're going to probably be announcing that tomorrow. So somewhere in the middle will likely be the outcome. The president moving with the Canadians and Mexicans, but not all the way.
Just to clarify,
he's going to come out today angry that Americans are still being killed. Now, both the Mexicans and the Canadians were on the phone with me all day today trying to show that they'll do better. And the president's listening because he's very, very fair and very reasonable. So I think he's going to work something out with them. It's not going to be a pause, none of that pause stuff. But I think he's going to figure out, you do more.
Sorry. Okay. This is what Hasan should be banned for? Okay. I didn't realize it was only 30 seconds long. Is there a way that we can do an annulment of this past election? Some kind of recall? Nope. How would the tariffs even affect the trafficking of fentanyl? No, it's just like, it is an incredibly silly legal justification for why Trump is engaging in these retaliatory tariffs. He can't just be like, I'm just going to tariff you because I want to cripple your economy, or I'm just going to tariff you for this or that reason. So he has to come up with a reason for why he's doing this. And in his mind, the best way to package this is by talking about issues that he talked about throughout the election, which is fentanyl deaths. Okay. He has no legal power to do it without declaring an emergency on fent. Okay. Well, let's continue with this.
With President Trump just responding to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, writing this on Truth Social, quote, please explain to Governor Trudeau of Canada that when he puts on a retaliatory tariff on the U.S., a reciprocal tariff will immediately increase by a like amount. Harris, the fight began on your show with Trudeau, and it doesn't seem like Trump's backing down.
Well, look, I mean, he's not President Trump. He is a prime minister of a neighboring country on its way out, on his way out. And I don't think he gamed out the things that he said and the effect that it could potentially have on the Canadian people. He made a selfish move today. And he called the president of the United States dumb. So, look, or his actions dumb. It effectively is the same thing, the way he put it. So, look, I mean, this is not going to lift Canada's position at all. And it just makes the art of the deal much more difficult for Trudeau on behalf of his country. And he's running out of time. So we're dealing with him now. In 30 days, the process, or less than 30 days by the end of this month, begins to replace him per his exit announcement about a month and a half ago. So then we're going to be dealing with somebody else. I mean, if he really wants, he has nothing to lose. I put this out there. But I think, he's legacy leadership in that country. He is marring the name Trudeau for times to come. He needs to Zelensky this. Either get on your X, pick up the phone, and say, look, here's what I meant, and clean it up on aisle 7. We'll see if it happens.
And Sandra, as we think about this, I just think back to first term and some of the headlines like Politico, Trump drops tariff threat on Mexico after migration deal is reached. And we remember the USMCA, the impetus for that was a tariff threat. And you end up getting this trade deal. So a lot of times with Trump, he's taking these moves, he's making these moves, and you wonder if it's pursuant to something that comes on the horizon. But you have to have another leader on the other side willing to concede. And with Trudeau, he doesn't have a lot to lose on his way out the door.
Well, remember, he's ginned up a lot of support for this by saying we're not going to be taken advantage of it anymore. And if he sticks to that message, he'll continue to get support for this. This is obviously playing out in a very public way. I was just taking a peek at the markets to see if there was a reaction to the president's response. And if anything, the markets have come off of their lows.
Oh, look at that.
Bro, look, I give all glory to Jusha, okay, all the time, to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. So please do not misunderstand me when I say this. But this is literally the old Korean lady on television, okay? This is crazy. Someone's got to have that dear leader link. I mean, come on. Does the market price in radicalizing your northern neighbors to loathe you? No. It does kind of feel like they're doing the Did you just send me a Russia Today link? That's crazy. That's crazy, chatter. There's no other link that has actually no other outlet talking about Claudia's statements. Are you trying to get me clapped again? Well, what the hell? Are you trying to get me destroyed again by libs? Libs are going to be like, there it is. Yeah, this is Fox News.
주체 패고 2016년 1월 6일 10시 주체 조선의 첫 수소탄 시험이 성공적으로 진행.
That's my goat. I love her. Okay, I love her. She's amazing.
Right. So, I mean, this is fascinating to see this play out in such a public way.
How do investors see this?
Uncertainty. You know, I don't think you can look at the market and just say that it's saying it doesn't like the tariffs or it loves the tariffs because the market's up one day or down one day. Just uncertainty, investors cannot stand. And so markets will go down if they don't know what's happening next. And perhaps that's what we're seeing right now.
Some certainty, maybe Canada will call.
Yeah, maybe. Well,
Western chauvinist? No. I actually like her. I don't like these people, but I like her. She deserves the new flat that she got that was gifted to her by Kim Jong-un, okay?
We'll all wait with bated breath to see what happens next. This is all playing out.
To be fair, they granted Biden the same amount of charity. No, that's not true. I mean, they did on certain issues, like when they talked about how brilliant he was and how he wasn't actually mentally decrepit. But, bro, there is no comparison here. Like Fox News to Donald Trump versus CNN to Joe Biden is crazy. Like they actively lie to the American public about his mental faculties. That much is true. But when Joe Biden would do stuff, they would absolutely laser him in the off chance that he actually did anything really. I don't know, pulling out of Afghanistan. Do you not remember? They constantly also harped on him for not being right-wing enough. They constantly harped on him for not being right-wing enough in terms of the migrant crisis at the border. They like actively hammered him.
Rather dramatically ahead of tonight's joint address to Congress.
Yeah, that's going to be at 6 p.m. Doug Ford warns Trump he will cut off energy to the U.S. with a smile on my face if it comes to it. Okay?
Nervous? Yeah, they're nervous because of President Trump. We have to make sure you have two choices here, folks. We roll over as a country and just let them run over us, or we fight like hell, like we've never fought before. I'm taking option 2. I'm fighting like hell, and we're going to protect Canada. He's underestimating the Canadian people, the resilience of the Canadian people, and the strength of the Canadian people. I said, number 1, I don't start a tariff war, but we're going to win this tariff war. Right off the hop, I've directed the LCBO, we're the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world, to remove every bit of U.S. alcohol off the shelves. I know my good friend, the governor of Kentucky, he's losing his mind right now. I said, you better talk to your president. Mitch McConnell, senior senator from Kentucky, they're losing their mind. We purchased over $1 billion of alcohol, 3,600 products, 35 states. It's going to hit them. We call them the kitchen table issues. Then we're going to cancel Starlinks right away from Elon Musk. Not that $100 million makes a difference for him, but it's principle. I've directed the procurement of over $30 billion of goods, not to go to the U.S., to make sure we buy Ontario first. And if we can't find it in Ontario and we can't build it in Ontario, we go across the country.
All right.
And our retaliation is going to be surgically targeted to create the maximum pressure on the White House to stop what the Wall Street Journal has described quite rightly as the dumbest.
Dude, if Canada does a BDS on America, it would be so awesome. I mean, look, more power to you guys, okay? More power to you, okay? Developing resentment towards America KKK in this way, perhaps it should have happened for a million different reasons and for better ones. But I'll take it where I can get it. Canadians, I am with you. Let your chat know that Doug Ford is a monster, calling him base is gross. Yeah, for sure. This is also making the worst people in Canadian politics look good too, especially in the eyes of Canadians in general.
Trade war in history. An example of a measure that
just don't boycott me, okay? I'm an anti-imperialist, anti-American content creator, so please keep building a carve out for your BDS Canadian Hasanabi heads, and please keep subscribing with your Canadian dollars, even if it's not at the top of the hour. Okay, which you can do for, I think, what is it, like $6-7 Canadian dollars, or for free with a Twitch Prime. You can still use your Twitch Prime to subscribe, especially if you couldn't resubscribe yesterday because I got banned, for those of you who don't know. So it's 8 CAD. Okay, $8 CAD. Don't worry, you're an honorary member of the Quebec Libre movement. We got you. I am. This is true. Canuck bucks. Yeah. Like this is actually correct. Here's the other thing. Where is it? Doug Ford just won another election. I think it was in large part due to his response to the tariffs. He will continue to dismantle healthcare in Ontario. Exactly. So Trump's idiotic actions against Canada has unironically made people like Doug Ford look better. And now, with that popularity, with that popular mandate, Doug Ford will continue to undermine social services in Ontario. So, what is this? Got a new contract while he was banned? Unbelievable. I did not get a new contract. I am not running ads. I was kidding. Subscribing, which you don't have to do, but if you want to, you can subscribe. You can send me links. If you subscribe, you can clip stuff. You get some amenities. What? Squeak says some choice words for your video.
These sound so.
What is this? I've probably been banned.
These sound so cool. He sounds like a vibrator. Sorry.
That's crazy. That's crazy. What's up, everyone? If you're seeing this, that means I've probably been banned. That's right. Cancel.
sorry.
That's crazy. I'll take it. Much better than XQ Snake, dude. XQ called out Twitch for unbanning Hasanabi only one day after suspending him. Just comical, dude. What a joke, dude. He said. Snake. XQ Snake. You're the snake, baby. Why are you surrounded by backstabbers for real? Come on, dude. Look at the industry. Like, yes, Twitch streaming is... Look, there are a lot of wonderful people that I've met in this career, okay? And then there are a lot of people who have absolutely abused my charitable nature over and over again. It's not surprising. If you've been following any of the XCC drama between me and him for the past couple of years, I think you know where he stands on all these issues. He is actively trying to win back people now, and you know, more power to him, but he's always going to farm me. The quicker you understand that a lot of people have direct financial incentives and that's the only thing they care about and nothing else, the easier you will make sense of how people operate in this industry. It's just the truth. You should farm him, to be honest. I don't give a shit. He's already rich. What do you mean? I know. He is. And in the process, he shed a lot of he basically forced a lot of people's hands into just like shutting him out. He'll still be able to collaborate with many other people. He has a massive audience, and eventually, if he's like even a little bit nice to them, that a lot of content creators will return and collaborate with him and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, he's talked about how lonely he feels and how shitty this industry is without recognizing that it's because he treated everybody like shit. There is virtually no other way to describe this. Okay? That's it. He has actively treated every single content creator in his orbit like shit, no matter how nice people have been to him. If you smell dog poop everywhere you go, you wake up and you smell shit. Go to the coffee shop, you smell shit. Maybe it's not everywhere else that smells like shit. Maybe you are the one who stepped in the shit. Or maybe you are the piece of shit. And it's not just XCC. A lot of content creators have major egos, myself included. You know, it's understandable. It is what it is. let's get back to the where was it? Let's get back to the tariff. 100% tariffs on Teslas. Canadian Prime Minister candidate reveals tariff response plans against the United States. I was considering writing a piece based on why so many people attack you over other left-wing voices online. The far right is a term for the jockeying that happens in spaces that are before politics, but which create the cultural narratives that far right use to convert people. Metapolitics. You exist in gaming and anime spaces as a left-winger and someone who completely debunks all the stereotypes the right likes to use to discredit the left is why you get so much heat. Yeah, it's also why I have also retained a relatively sizable audience in spite of all of that. And I think that really pisses people off. That's what it is. That frustrates a lot of people where they're like, why do people still subscribe to him? Why do people still support this guy? He's bad. Look at all of my friends that say he's bad. Do you think you still attract new audiences considering the hate train you get? Yeah. I think the hate train is so overwhelming and so consistent that I think a lot of people go, I'm going to look into this myself. There are plenty of people who come in here and they're like, okay, well, maybe I was a little misguided about the way that people presented you. And I think that funnels in new people all the time. Because, like, I've seen this quite a bit, especially with, like, the Ethan Klein stuff, where Ethan is not exactly a popular content creator either. He's been around for quite a long time. And a lot of people have made up their minds on him. And some people like him a lot, and a lot of people also despise him online. Some of the reasons why a lot of people despise him online are ridiculous reasons and bad reasons. And there's also good reasons for why people are angry at him as well. And in that process, when he just like engaged in the extensive crash out, people go, okay, well, his insanity caused me to go and take a look, you know, because you can't maintain a reasonable approach if you're actively just like going, everything and anything that this person does is wrong, and I'm going to assume the exact opposite position. People are just gonna be like, all right, well, you know, maybe I'll make up my mind on my own.
Buenos días a todos. Hemos decidido responder con medidas arancelarias y no arancelarias que anunciaré en plaza pública el próximo domingo. No es de ninguna manera o el propósito.
My goat Claudia, I wish Mexico would annex. I wish Mexico would annex America so that we could be under the protectorate of Claudia Sheinbaum. It is by no means our purpose to start an economic or trade confrontation.
Iniciar una confrontación económica o comercial que desafortunada
which unfortunately and regrettably
es lo opuesto
is
a
the
lo que
opposite of what we should be doing.
Haciendo. Es decir,
that is
integrar más nuestras
integrating our economies
para
more to strengthen our region.
Nadie gana
Nobody
con
wins
esta
with this
decisión.
decision.
Por el contrario,
on the contrary, it affects the people we represent. To the Mexican women and men. Ooh, she's woke. She said women first. I remind you that we have based the growth for the last 6 years on the strengthening of the domestic market, the creation of jobs through public investment, and the increase in minimum wage and welfare programs. Amazing. Also, retaliatory tariffs are coming in from China as well. I'm an example of making up my mind on my own. I feel like the hate Hasan gets is pretty unfair. Do I agree with everything Hasan says? No, but I also don't understand the level of hate that is directed this way. It's parasocial. That's what it is. A lot of people have parasocial desires to do right by their favorite content creators. And when their favorite content creators are actively making money constantly and consistently saying, I'm the worst person on the planet, on the face of the planet every single day, they start believing them. I don't even fault those people, to be honest. I genuinely don't fault those people because most people are busy. They got jobs. They don't have time to come in and tune in and make up their own minds about a content creator. It just kind of like washes away. And they just develop that resentment without really considering it because the content creator that they trust is actively poisoning the well. The people, however, that do actually follow through on the brigading and consistently freaking out over this kind of thing, that's a little different. Like that is, how are you engaging in what you consider to be a righteous battle for a random content creator? My guy, you also say some really dumb shit sometimes. Yeah. Well, again, I'm a Twitch streamer. Of course I say dumb shit from time to time, perhaps even all the time. Like, what do you mean? Who doesn't say dumb shit? Do you not say dumb shit on a day-to-day basis? The only difference is you're not saying it in front of 50,000 people, and you don't have active people trying to clip that and immediately be like, see, this is bad. And also, weaponizing their misunderstanding. The dumb shit they're referring to. That's all right. That would be a beautiful future, let me tell you. Yeah, so many people you meet or collab IRL say that they assumed you were a meme based on all the clip chimps of you out there. Yep. Let's continue. Let's see what the Chinese retaliatory tariffs look like.
China. Let's get to China as that country does retaliate against these tariffs. Our Eunice Yoon is in Beijing with the latest. Hi, Eunice.
Hey, Carl. Well, the Chinese government, as you guys had mentioned, had threatened all necessary measures, countermeasures, when it comes to their reaction. But this batch actually was relatively limited. Minutes after President Trump's tariffs had kicked in, China announced tariffs on the agricultural sector for the main part. This was 10 to 15% tariffs on imports of soybeans, sorghum, beef, fruits, chicken, corn, cotton, wheat. Some of the, in one case or in some of the cases, China is the biggest buyer of these products, such as soybeans and cotton. During President Trump's first trade war, China had also targeted agricultural products, and at that time it was really seen as a political calculation that China would want to target President Trump's political base. Now, this time the Chinese also imposed various business restrictions on more than 25 companies. 10 of them were added to an unreliable entity list, so they're blacklisted. 15 added to export control list. A lot of these firms are, for the most part, in the defense industry, don't have a whole lot of business in China, if any at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like America's letting China purchase American weapons anyway, right?
And had already been sanctioned by Beijing. The one interesting company was among all of these was Illumina. This was the company that had been blacklisted in February after President Trump's February tariffs had kicked in. That company has now been banned from importing its gene sequencer machines, and China does account for 7% of Illumina's sales. That was the most high-profile corporate among the group, so it does give you a sense that we're seeing a lot of action, a lot of noise with these measures, but no household names.
Eunice, our Commerce Secretary was on a few moments ago, really emphasizing the element about fentanyl. And the Journal piece today reads, Chinese officials have said in recent weeks that U.S. tariffs make them less likely to help solve the fentanyl problem. Is that true?
For President Xi Jinping, he is not going to be like the Canadian or Mexican leaders, not going to be seen as somebody who would pick up the phone and try to work something out with President Trump and be seen as kind of bending the knee to President Trump, to the Chinese public. So President Xi would probably go to Trump on his own terms. And that is really important for the Chinese leadership to make sure that their public knows that, or at least believes that, President Xi is in control.
Eunice, when it comes to some of these agricultural products, chicken, wheat, corn, cotton, 15% tariffs, are there other places the Chinese are going to be able to go to find those kinds of agricultural products at a lesser price? Do you know?
Yeah, definitely. They've been doing this. They've been diversifying since 2018. So they've been moving to looking at Brazil for the most part, for, say, corn. They've been trying to reduce a lot of their reliance on the U.S. when it comes to these agricultural products, and that's expected to continue, especially in this climate.
Now, Eunice, I also remember, I'm sure we had a conversation around this at the time, when we reached, under the last Trump administration, there was a deal reached with China in some way that involved them buying a lot of agricultural products. I don't
Bricks rising.
remember the exact target number, but I don't believe it was ever met.
Right. That has been one of the sticking points that the Trump administration, as well as a lot of other folks in the U.S., have said about that 2020 trade deal, the Phase 1 trade deal. There's been some discussion, though, ironically here, that the Chinese will want to return to that 2020 Phase 1 trade deal, that they would agree to buy a lot of U.S. products, not only agricultural products, but from their perspective, a lot of high-tech products, not something necessarily that the U.S. Would want to see. But there is this belief that the Chinese leadership does prefer going back to that kind of grander economic deal.
Yep.
I saw you on Trash Taste, thought you were a pretty cool guy, saw the hate and decided to come check you out. Well, make no mistake, chatter. This is a very scary and very dangerous community. Very, very scary. The things that we talk about in here. It's also weird though, because like virtually every single person that spends an insane amount of time actively saying how bad I am end up making a fool of themselves in the process. Hasan Reactions is one of the best ones in the React channel.